everybody. Hello. This is the call and response portion. Hello. All right, we're post-lunch. It's deep into the afternoon, so my full Americanness is going to come out. Here we go. Anyway, so nice to meet you guys. My name's Kyle. We're kind of new to this world. I am new to the telco universe. I've been building AI startups for a long time, but now I'm a partner at Sandbox, which we'll talk about more later, which is a venture firm out of the US. So I'm going to ask all of the dumb questions. I'm the perfect person to moderate this because I have no shame. So I'm going to ask all the really stupid questions, so bear with me. If we could, just really quickly, if we could just introduce yourselves very, very quickly, where you're from, where you're here, and I won't ask a silly question, but then we can just jump into it. Is that okay? Again, call and response. Is that okay? All right, good. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, this is Adnan Slimat. I already introduced myself, CTO software.
This was your opportunity to change your name if you wanted to. You could be
title,
Bill
or
right
maybe
now.
my title, maybe.
Okay, that's good.
Sure.
Yeah, your title.
Yeah, Adnan Salim, RadioSys, CTO software and cloud solutions based out of Vancouver, Canada.
Okay, excellent.
Nice, brief and short, nice. My name is Olaf. I work at CM.com. We're a CPaaS provider, but next to that we also have a lot of other software, and one of those things is our Agentic AI platform, and that's where I'm a lead data scientist. So my job and my team's job is actually to stay on top of all these crazy AI developments in this landscape and research and see what's nice and what's the next big thing, see if we can apply that, test it out, and then if it's useful, introduce it into our platform and create it into a product.
Cool. That's really good.
Yeah, so hello everyone. I'm not on the slides, but my name is Remco. I used to be with CM. I'm now joined a very small startup on AI. So it's called Global Next, and we're building an AI platform that helps you scale past your proof of concept phase. So I think what we've seen is this 95% number that's coming from MIT. This is actually the problem that we're trying to solve, because it's not obvious when you have a proof of concept to actually roll it out into a large-scale organization. So that's what we do with our platform.
I was part of that research at MIT, by the way, and I'm a big believer. So Mark Castleman from Intel, also formerly in telecom for many, many years, but I was running, previously I was running Intel's Deep Tech Accelerator for a couple of years, and then ran revenue for their cloud when they were trying to push some cloud stuff. And now I do large-scale special projects, ecosystem development, and obviously one of the biggest is telecom, and this kind of convergence with what's happening in some of this deeper tech stuff. So very excited to talk about what works and what doesn't work, as we were just talking about, because a lot of it doesn't, but it does have a path to a solution. So it's not always obvious on the surface, so we can talk about that.
That's awesome. Who here is using Agentic AI in any form in their company? Great. Would we say like 40%? 40%? Sorry, I don't do math very well. But who here uses Agentic AI in their personal life? More, which is really interesting. Who here uses like AI in their personal life, just in general, all the time? Good. So this is kind of like, it's been interesting, like over the years I've given talks, and just it's been interesting to see, like, as kind of it's come up, how the personal stuff almost always is a leading indicator of what's coming on the business side. And it does, like, as somebody who's new to it, it does feel like the operating stack is just like a bunch of spaghetti for a lot of legacy systems. Not always, but a lot of times, and so it makes it really hard for an agentic, any kind of thing, to operate very easily and freely because it's so siloed. Is that true? Am I wrong in thinking that? Or how is anybody actually navigating these systems, these legacy systems, with this new tech? You want to take that?
Yeah. So I think that the notion, a lot of people have this romantic notion that you have an agent, and the agent is magically inclined to go figure out everything. This is completely untrue.
Right.
Okay? What you have is you have an agent guided by practices that are typically captured in a prompt that is the encapsulation of all the expertise that you have in an organization, and then you take that as sort of as instruction, and then you query your model. And you get, so your prompt is your guide rail or your guardrail, and you could have a constellation of agents. So you could have, in a single workflow, you could have 100 agents to get a single outcome. And there are many checkpoints along the way. So the magic agent doesn't exist. So what happens is enterprise approaches, I want an outcome. They're like, hey, I need an agent. And then they realize, no, they need 100 agents.
Right.
And then they go, oh, that's not what I was expecting. I thought this was going to be really easy, like asking ChatGPT, how should I feel today? And
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way. So I think that as we get better at understanding what's actually happening, yes, we will get this sort of magic agent, but it's really going to be a combination. It's a recipe, not a single ingredient.
That's good. Do you think the pressure is coming from executives that are getting pressure from their other executive pals saying, like, what are we doing with Agentic AI? And then they're calling you and be like, hey, what are we doing about Agentic AI? Because I was at some Masters of the Universe conference and they kept asking me, and I didn't know what to say. Is there pressure coming down that way, or is it really just opportunistic? What would you say? Olaf, what would you say about that?
Yeah, of course, I think it's mainly a buzzword right now. It's oh yeah, Agentic AI, we have to do something with it, and I do agree, but I do also agree what you're saying. The most important thing, I think, is that we need to learn how to prompt these models, because people expect so much from them, and then they start working on it, and they write a prompt, which I'm doing like 20 times a day.
Yeah.
And then you read it back and you think, yeah, of course it's not going to do what you want to do, because you haven't instructed it with the proper things.
Right.
And I think also that's where this whole agentic AI becomes even more important, to prompt it correctly, because the word agentic in this whole AI or generative AI space means basically that you can get it to execute code. And what code it is doesn't really matter. And I think the most easy one to say is you can just connect it to any API that's accessible to you. That's what actually makes it agentic. It lets you execute code, but you need to know what it needs to execute. How do you instruct it to execute that? And if we really get to understand that, then I think it can become this magic thing, because it actually allows you to connect this spaghetti of platforms that you have through that agent if you know how to instruct it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Is what you're saying, that reminds me of that. I think it's Warren Buffett. You have to wait for the tide to go. When the tide goes out, you see who is naked, swimming naked. And that's what it feels like a lot of with this AI stuff. It's revealing how good your existing infrastructure and how good your data is and how clean it is. And then even organizationally, the part that we haven't talked about at all, there's humans that are making decisions still, maybe for another year. But it just shows how important that is. Did you run into that? Like when you're all deciding like who you're going to work with, because I'm sure everybody wants to work with you guys. How do you decide who you're going to work with? Because is it based on the organization, or is it based on the company, or is it based on who has the biggest check, or some fourth option?
Well, actually, if I could...
Is it the check? Yeah.
Yeah, if I could just maybe quickly make a comment on the previous topic there, that all this very complicated agentic stuff, that's for the future. That's not for the near term. Near term is more simple things. Let's do the simple things first, because they're like quote unquote low-hanging fruit.
Sure.
That can provide a lot of productivity and new and unique use cases that people don't have available today. Start with those. There's many of those around. Then it comes, I think one of the previous presentations talking about context. It's not just an agent. The agent cannot be a generic agent, although there may be some examples of that too. But by and large, those agents have to have context that is unique and specific to me. So how is it going to learn that? That what I prefer, what I want to do, what kind of decision making I would allow or not allow would be different than yours, and maybe even within the organization it might be different what decisions are going to be made. Those things require more and more training and more adaptation through additional context, because those decisions can have severe negative consequences too. I can't say go make this decision completely independently. This agent made it, even though I gave it all my preferences. So I think those kind of use cases are more complex, and they will take some time to evolve.
And then that's really good. And then as far as who you decide to work with, or who gets prioritized, who gets the cool new stuff, who gets the best team, how do you decide that? So I'm thinking about you. Like everybody in this room probably wants to work with you, right?
Well, from an AI perspective, this is actually a pretty difficult calculation, because in order to understand, let's say, ROI or NPV on a project, you got to pick amongst 20 projects.
Sure.
In a typical project analysis perspective, this is pretty straightforward. But in an AI ROI analysis, it's not, because the cost per token per watt is not equal per use case. So the cost per token per watt will change, and it will change based upon the complexity of the response. So if you are doing a simple response and you need a basic language model for pattern matching, that's very low power.
Right.
But if you need a reasoning model that has 8,000 times the number of tokens just to get a, let's say, a significant calculation, then your cost goes sky high. So the question is, what are you doing to get your outcome? And that goes back to the prompt and understanding all of the stuff that goes on. And I'll say one analogy and then I'll shut up, which is if you have a chef putting together a very fancy meal, if you look at the supply chain of every ingredient that got to the point where the chef was going to assemble it, it's insane.
Right.
Okay? The agentic is the same. The agent is the chef. But everything that it took for everything to get there, for that person or that agent to put that thing together at the last second is insane how that took. So you've got to calculate all of that to get a proper ROI. And if it goes below zero, it's negative, and therefore you don't do it. And this is why a lot of enterprise are killing projects, because it has a risk variable that goes below zero, and they don't do it. So now they just frozen until the analysis gets sharper. Then they can decide. So I think the answer is, if you know exactly what you're doing, then you have an analysis. If you don't, and you just want to play the AI game, then you're probably more inclined to make a 95% probability of a mistake than a successful outcome.
That's really good.
Yeah, maybe to add into that, so when we work with our customers, we typically assess two things. So I think the research also showed that the most successful cases are actually the internal projects, where you just give the tooling to people to work on it internally. And that makes perfect sense, because we all know how to do our jobs. If we can do that 10, 15% more effectively, more fast, then that helps and that raises productivity of the company as a whole. If we look at the external use cases, we use a very simple matrix. So we plot complexity versus impact on a matrix, and then we go for the most high impact, lowest complexity use cases. Why is that? We don't want to have the very safe use cases, because then you're never going to drive adoption. You want to have something that makes people go, wow, that's something that really changed the business that we did. And you also want to go for something that's very simple, right? Something that's very effective. I'm very fond of the Redis use case that you showed, because they're very high impact and they're very simple. You can explain it in one slide. So I think this is the way to think about it, at least for the upcoming period, right? Agentic is sort of where we're heading off to, but we need to get people this, it's often called AI literacy. People need to learn how to work with these tools. And just to give you one example, when we implement AI tooling with people, we also help them and assess what they're doing. And there was this one example where someone uploaded a file, and the thing they put into the chat was context. That was the whole prompt, right? And then they were complaining, why am I not getting the same kind of answers that I'm getting from ChatGPT? And then, yeah, you have to explain them, okay, you need to tell the tool what you want it to do to get the outcome that you want.
So that brings up a good question too. Like, how do you help prepare the humans for the AI or the agentic? Because that seems like the biggest. Like you've mentioned prompt. I mean, it's in my own experience too. It's you have to prepare the humans first. And so how do you prepare all of us who are basically going to be leading armies of robots, good, bad, or indifferent, maybe to negative ROI, hopefully a positive one? Like, how do you do that? How do we learn, and then how do we help our teams learn?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we're doing is that we have sort of a scalable product. So we always start with the internal tools first. Just give people a ChatGPT internal solution, because you need to learn what the technology does. We've been trained for 20, 25 years to use keywords when we want to search for something. That means minimal information to get some output. Now you have to do the exact opposite. You have to give a lot of context for that model to actually give an answer that's tuned to the question that you have. Once you've mastered that, then you probably want to do something, build your own, we call them assistants, right? So you want to do something that does a specific use case for you very well. You can scale that out to company assistants, so you scale it up, you put in your company data, and only once you've mastered that, you can put it into a workflow. And I think that's sort of a growth path that you need to take people along with. And once people master that, then you can go into complex solutions that take multiple steps.
Does that work? Do people learn?
Yeah, it does work. It also helps to do formal training, right? So you can do a formal prompt training, half a day or a full day, and then you sort of get down to the basics. But in reality, it's just practice, right? It took us a lot of time for people to learn how to search the web. When I was young, I remember that my parents did their digital driver's license, right? They learned how to work with Excel and PowerPoint. It's a crazy thought, but I think we're at sort of the same thing right now. People need to learn how to work with this new magic tool. It's a different way of interacting with a machine. We just need to guide them along. And people are also quite agile in learning. I mean, if you show them a few of these things, then they figure it out on their own. But yeah, that's what I think that we're up to.
Yeah, Mark?
Yeah, one thing I'll add to that is that I think another part of your question is, how do you use AI to surface curiosity in your organization? And my experience is looking organizationally is that curious people tend to engage more. And people who are looking to disengage ask quick questions and want to detach. So I think that's a good barometer for who's going to embrace and kind of dig in and get benefit out of it, and who is maybe a little more transactional and just kind of wants to move on to do something else and doesn't necessarily see how far down the rabbit hole this thing can go.
Right.
And because it's pretty insane how far down it can go. And it takes a curious person to figure that out. And so like you said, if you show them, kind of introduce it to them, the curious person will keep going. And I think if you look across your organization and try to figure out who are my people that are going to be exploring this with me, it will be those people.
Absolutely. So there's so many different things. There's a rabbit hole there on how do you find the right humans to be able to do the testing? Because in my experience has been, there's people that are really good at that early stage testing and they can navigate your organization like a big, complex, gnarly organization. And then there's other people that can scale it once most of the recipe's been kind of mapped out. But those two kinds of people are not in separate groups usually. The innovation group is not always the most innovative, and the operations people aren't the most. But so how do you find those people? Should everyone that's here, should they have a team that's like their pilot crew, that's really, really creative, and they have a little bit more of a license to try everything that you're working on? Or should it just be baked into like a regular operations system so you can prove it out?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the organization that you are, but we're now, within CM.com, we've seen that this is, of course, the future. We need to adopt, and I think it was also in the keynote after the lunch. It was something that really resonated with me, like, you need to get on board now with this. So actually, we've just recently, like a few months ago, we've opened up our internal AI team. So what they are doing is they're only working on internal projects, whereas we already have quite a lot of AI products that we sell to our customers. We've actually seen now that within the organization, there's so much still to optimize. And now there's like one team that's really pulling along, visiting all the departments, getting people's information. Hey, what is the biggest problem that you want to solve right now? And it can be as big as you want. And then this AI team actually gets to sit with them and actually help them develop that. So I think you need to have this internal team that's really like a beacon of AI promotion that might push the rest of the organization further and think in these ways of, oh, hey, but this is how we can use it. Oh, maybe next time we don't need them anymore. Maybe we can do it ourselves. That's what's working for us right now.
It's really good.
Yeah,
Yes.
the other thing maybe I would add to that is that, at least in my experience in our organization, as well as that, it's not these creative new ideas sometimes come from people who are completely non-technical, have never really used it. So use those people. People who maybe perhaps like me are so head down into the AI and the telecom networks technology, we tend to become maybe a little too tunnel vision. And I think people who are not exposed to that, they will just take more from a user experience perspective. They don't know what's possible or not possible, but then we will decide, we'll determine, whoa, that's a great idea. I just never thought of it because why would anybody want to? Because now I see what you want to do it. Whereas I may have not said because, I don't think this is possible until somebody brings it up. Then say, oh, well, actually, maybe it is possible. So I think rely on people who are not so, it's a combination of both. It's not one or the other, but rely on people who are not so hands-on technology in the depth of it day in, day out.
That's really interesting. It does strike me like having spent a little bit of time like thinking about this industry more than I ever have over the last little while, is how many other companies should be playing with telcos and startups and how much money should be in this, because it's so powerful, but it's kind of been neglected. Like in comparison to all the other tech space, and there's been a little discussion with that. But man, like how do we like invite more people to come on this side? Because there's a lot of really smart people that aren't even thinking about this at all, I think. And so it just strikes me as the more people we can bring, the smarter people, the better and faster this is going to get. And because this is like the base for how most of us access the internet, it just makes everything better for everybody. So how do we do that? Like well, should we? But how do we do that if we should?
Well, as a former telco guy, and I've built a lot of applications on telco networks and done a lot of work in the network itself to produce outcomes.
Yeah.
The thing that we have to realize, and I think you said it very well, which is the agent's going to do something.
Yeah.
It's going to do something. It's going to execute. It's going to trigger. It's going to get. It's going to push. It's going to turn things off. It's going to turn things on, and the telco network is full of all of those little levers.
Yeah.
There's just thousands of little levers, and they're all can be sort of micro monetized. And if you think about the agent at a very high level, it's the deconstruction of the app world. So you're deconstructing every single app into individual little functional parts, and all of those individual functional parts are going to do similar things, either in little pieces or in whole, as an entire application did for a large group. So in the old days, a product manager would try to homogenize features for the largest number of users possible. But in an agentic world, it is exactly tuned to the person. But the things that it does will be exactly the same, and it has to go turn all those little levers. So if I'm in the telco world, what I'm going to do is I want to expose as many levers as possible and tell everyone that they are available and make them as easily consumable as possible, because anybody that's trying this is going to wire that up immediately because they have to. And so that's what I would do first and foremost. I wouldn't sit there and try to figure out the use cases, because that is an insane, task that nobody can quite figure out. But if you just expose it and say, come and do whatever the hell you want to do,
right,
then people will do that. And then the good use cases will rise, the agents will rise up, and the shitty ones will go away. Oh, sorry, pardon me. And the not so good ones will go away. And, so that's what I would do from a telco perspective.
Yeah.
In the old days, last comment on this is that telco bombed on the app world side of life because they tried to figure out the apps.
Yeah.
Instead of enable the apps. And so the people that were enabling the apps won that, and all the app guys went with that, and they so-called over the top. So we're revisiting that. It's like Craigslist being deconstructed into $41 billion companies. So, which happened, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? So it's happening right now. So there are going to be trillions of little agents running around, turning on and off things, pushing and pulling stuff, doing all kinds of stuff as if it's me. So what is AT&T's network going to happen when there's 1,000 mark? Not just, they have 100 million subs times 1,000.
Right.
Now what's going to happen? It's going to, I can predict what's going to happen. It's not pretty, but it could also produce a huge amount of income.
Yeah.
And opportunity. So that's what I would do on the telco side. Become an enabler.
Yes.
Like immediately, like now.
Yes.
And then you'll get the people that want to tune.
I love that. Because then the opposite is also true, too. If you fight it too much, because the history has been pretty strong, if you don't, then, if I just be provocative, you become the dumb tubes in which everybody makes all the money. And you're like, thanks, great, I just made a ton of money, thanks again. But if you can invite them on, then there's opportunity to partner. Partnerships are different than vendor-vendee relationships, for sure. I really like that a lot. On the trust side, I just want to talk about trust. You can see a world where, like when I get a call from my bank, it takes me a minute to realize if the person's real or not. Like this happens on the regular now. And it's going to get to the point where I don't even know, nor do I care. So you can take that to the nth degree where basically most of the systems are just being run by robots. Is that okay? Or should there be a human in the loop somewhere to just double check that it's not completely run off the rails? No? All the agentic guys are like, let it go.
Elevators are run by software too. So
right.
I think that it can
That's a
be
good point.
automated.
I like that.
So this notion that everything needs a human in the loop is not true.
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't survive kind of pushing that to the boundary.
Love it.
But what you're pointing out is that there is danger in that reality.
Yeah.
Now, I look at that and say, anytime you have the greater the delta between upside and downside, the greater the opportunity in that arbitrage.
Yeah. Ooh,
Because
good.
if you have a bland kind of thing, it's not high value, it's not high culture impact.
Yeah.
But if you have something that can produce really high value and real destructive outcomes,
Yeah.
it's actually pretty valuable.
Yeah.
Nuclear power,
Yeah.
electricity, all kinds of other weaponry, and then medicines of various types, drugs. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
The things that have the greater delta are the most impactful and therefore the most valuable in the culture. So I think that the fear of it is reasonable. The solutions are positive. For example, I never take a call from my bank.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah.
If the bank calls, I literally just hang up on them
Yeah.
because even if it's real, they're dumb for doing that.
Yeah,
and if it's fake, then I win.
They're selling
anyway.
you something.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, they're like, hey, can I offer you more services on this call? It's like, no.
No.
I called for a specific reason. So anyway, that's what I do. But eventually the systems can solve that. But the deep fake is getting very difficult to figure out, by the way. I mean, super difficult to figure out. So eventually humans are going to have to change their behavior. They're going to get scammed.
Yeah, which is already happening at massive levels. The other part of it too is just like to continue to like if your customer service is entirely run by robots, your brand is essentially a robot because your interface with all of your customers or your clients, even if it's a B2B, could be. But if you how do you program it correctly?
It goes the opposite direction as well.
Yeah.
We talked about this, I think, in Barcelona. I can program a couple hundred agents to go examine all the people that I do. I download my credit card statements, put them into a list, synthesize it, have agents go build analysis of all of the products that I'm consuming from those brands, and then hammer those customer websites with deal requests over and over again until their bot relents.
That's right.
And then what happens is I see like a 30 to 40% reduction in my monthly expenses because I just I outpounded their
I'm
AI
going to do
with
that
my
this
AI.
afternoon.
Yeah,
That's
it
a
works.
good idea.
It's the battle of the AI. So now the issue is the vendor doesn't know if that engagement is a human or a bot. So if you reverse it, it becomes it can be super expensive. I can double the cost of a contact center by programming 1,000 agents to like hammer them. And by the way, I voted 33 million times for American Idol. Because I had a platform with 1 million phone numbers, and I
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
That's amazing.
And I made like a couple $100,000 on reciprocal comp through the telco termination. So yeah,
You're my hero.
I mean,
These are the stories that need to be told.
I didn't do it in the finals because I didn't want to get busted.
That's amazing.
But it was. But my point is, like, there's always you have to imagine the exact opposite of what you think is beneficial.
Yeah. That's good. I want to know more about that. That's good.
But maybe to chip in on this. So I think, okay, on the bot side, there's still a challenge. But on the identity side, I think the networking APIs are a unique asset that the CPaaS providers and the telcos, they have. They can reliably establish the identity of a person, right? So think about it the other way. Also, if you are interacting with a bot, that's a unique asset that you can leverage to actually identify, okay, this is actually the person making a request to that bot. So I think those are the kind of unique use cases, especially in the CPaaS domain, that you should be looking after, because those are going to drive sort of the value in the next few years to come. Yeah,
absolutely. My last question starts with a statement, which is that most of us either are the executives or we're managing executives too that are asking for this AI stuff all the time. And so the very first thing we're saying, they're just thinking, you just sprinkle a little magic AI on it, and then boom, we get like 40% reduction in cost and 40% increase in sales at the same time. But as we've worked with large companies of all stripes and sizes, most of it is like they are lacking like the core strategic narrative of the organization of why are they even doing agentic AI? Why are they even doing this thing or that thing? And they're hoping that AI will solve their core strategy problem. So my big question is, this may be unfair in a minute and 48 seconds, but how have you guys done that either internally as much as you can share, or heard others like deal with how this reveals some of the systemic issues that might be there and help it as an opportunity to maybe solve some of these problems and then also apply this new technology?
I've
Yeah.
seen, quick
And
answer.
feel free to disagree if you think I'm wrong,
Sure,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think just from personal experience within the organization, it's not as much about cost reduction. Sure, there's AI can be used for optimizing processes, cost reduction, doing more with less. That's always great. But the more challenging or more interesting part is the revenue, increasing the revenue part of it. So our focus has been with our customers, how can we increase revenue? The cost reduction part that's almost a given. So yeah, people are going to use AI to do optimization, just like people have used previous technologies to optimize. I mean, even if I look at it as from a software developer coding perspective, we don't write in assembler anymore, right? Somebody said, hey, there's much quicker, faster way to write it in C than in Python and then something else. So that just allowed people to do more with less time. And just AI in general, cost reduction part, right? But I think it's a revenue, opening up the market by expanding revenue opportunities, revenue streams. So use AI where people can do things, by people I mean enterprises and consumers, can do more that they couldn't do before.
So is the narrative productivity or is it cost reduction?
Productivity.
It's productivity.
Productivity, yeah.
Yeah.
They're both there, but I
They're
think,
both there. Yeah.
I think if you look at it from the bottom up, because this has been top down, if you look at it
Yeah.
from bottom up, you can also motivate your workers or your workforce to become way more, not even efficient, but enjoy their work way
Yeah.
more. Like for instance, when you're a coder, when I'm vibe coding, I enjoy it so much more because all the stuff that was so tedious before, even if I would have learned Vim, it would have still been tedious to do. And now I can just focus on the fun stuff, creating a design, creating a test, checking out new products, see if they work, implement them in an afternoon, and I'll be done, and I can have a conclusion, and next week it can be live.
Yeah. The ironic thing is that all of this AI is, I feel like, giving a lot of us our agency back inside of like our ability to build very quickly without having to ask for more budget or manpower to be able to prove a point, which is pretty awesome. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it, and will you all be around to have conversations more later? And you guys can ask me if my hair is real. It is. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.